This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good day. Welcome to your news at noon for Friday, December 23rd, 2022. I'm Kevin Smith. In your news today, international lawyer and transparency advocate Melinda Janke is convinced that the PPPC government is more interested in serving the interest of players in the oil industry, even if it means leaving the citizenry worse off. In an invited comment on Guyana's oil sector performance since marking its third anniversary on December 20th, 2022, Janke said transparency, accountability, and good governance remain woefully lacking. She contended that the country is shackled to massive project costs for the Liza 1, Liza 2, Payara, and Yellowtail developments in the Stabroek Block. Janke noted that the rate of recovery for these costs, or what they include, continues to be treated as top secret. In any case, she said these projects are ultimately working to benefit the pockets of ExxonMobil and its partners, Hess Corporation and CNOOC. Janke alluded to the breakneck speed with which the government has approved the Payara and Yellowtail projects. Both received regulatory green lights in less than 2 months, representing an abnormality and violation of international best practices. She was keen to warn that Guyanese must not fall prey to the trap that oil will bring transformative growth or improvement in their lives. Instead, oil increases the gap between the rich and poor. For Janke, the last 3 years have seen massive change, the type that wreaks disrespect for Guyanese and their laws. Meanwhile, the ILO has warned that old age-related social protection coverage is deteriorating, leaving 34.5% of people over 65 without any labor-related income or pension, a situation of vulnerability and economic insecurity that has been made worse by the COVID-19 crisis. The proportion of older people without labor income or pension increased from 31.9% in 2019 to 34.6% in 2020 and 34.5% in 2021. This coverage gap is the highest in the entire series available since 2012, according to a new technical note published by the ILO. At a regional level, 46.8% of those over 65 receive only a pension, 5.1% receive labor income and pension, and 13.6% report annually labor income. In total, only 51.9% receive a pension. And in other news, social activist Raymond Gaskin has signaled his intention to appeal Wednesday's Court of Appeal ruling that Hess Guyana and China National Offshore Oil Corporation do not need separate licenses to engage in oil development and production given the license obtained by their partner, Esso. Melinda Janke, one of Gaskin's lawyers, confirmed that Gaskin will be moving to the Caribbean Court of Justice for final deliberation. Both the High Court and the Court of Appeal, however, dismissed these arguments, finding instead that since Esso, Guyana, Hess, and CNOOC were involved in a joint venture, they were covered under the permissions obtained by Esso. And leading investors with assets under management of more than 1.3 trillion euros have joined activist shareholder group Follow This in filing climate resolutions against 4 of the world's biggest oil-producing companies, demanding that they create green targets and make them public. Follow This said in a statement that Shell, BP, ExxonMobil, and Chevron have received resolutions requesting that the oil majors align themselves with the Paris Climate Agreement to reduce emissions by 2030 and to disclose exactly how they intend to do that. Just recently, the international observer group Influence Maps released a report accusing the said oil companies of continuing to mislead the world about their climate change intentions. The group had said that based on their findings, the oil companies were utilizing a systematic strategy to portray themselves as positive and proactive on the issue of climate change. They said that the company's commitment to climate action was inconsistent with their capital investments and where they claimed to be making strides with climate change. There was no real information on what they were doing and progress made. And just before we head to a short commercial break, let's tell you that leader of the PNCR, Aubrey Norton, said like his predecessors, he will continue to give leadership to his party and assured members that despite the current setbacks, and I quote, "we will come through this difficult period," end of quote. Norton at the time was speaking at a memorial service for Guyana's former president and party leader, the late Hugh Desmond Hoyt. The ceremony was held at Hoyt's burial site, the place of the Seven Ponds in the Botanical Gardens. Norton's leadership has been called into question in recent times, with many predicting that he would be ousted at the party's next Congress. The time has now moved on to 12 hours 5 in Guyana. We'll take a short break and return with our news.
If something doesn't look right, then there is something wrong. And if you suspect child abuse, then you must report it to the Child Care and Protection Agency. During this time more than ever, we have to be the eyes and ears of abused children across the country. So if you see it, or you know it, or even if you just think it's child abuse, then you must report it to the police or call the CPA hotline on 227-0979.
A message from the Child Care and Protection Agency, Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, and UNICEF.
Welcome back. Let's continue with the news. Another woman has died as a result of complications after giving birth at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation. Tiffany D. Jeffrey, a 38-year-old woman who experienced health complications, died at the hospital on Thursday, 2 days after she delivered her baby, the hospital confirmed in a statement. The statement added that the GPHC expresses sincerest condolences to the family of the deceased and will make every effort to provide all the necessary support during this difficult time to render any assistance and information needed. We understand that the woman was diagnosed with sickle cell, which caused complications during her pregnancy. Over the past several weeks, GPHC has recorded close to 5 deaths. And in other news, the Guyana Court of Appeal has refused to strike down the death penalty as unconstitutional amid a fierce lobby by international organizations. The Court of Appeal made the decision on Thursday following considerations in the cases of 3 former members of GDF, Coast Guard, Davon Gordon, Dion Greenidge, and Sherwin Hart, who in 2013 were found guilty of the robbery and murder of Dweev Kant Ramdas. The trial judge imposed death sentences on all 3 defendants. The Death Penalty Project, an internationally recognized non-governmental organization that uses the law to protect prisoners facing execution and achieve fairer and more humane justice systems, had joined the matter to challenge the local justice system on the use of the death penalty. The Court of Appeal declined to strike down the death penalty as unconstitutional. 3 death sentences were overturned and replaced with life sentences. And in other news, real food prices have been significantly higher in recent years than 20 to 30 years ago. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization's Food Price Index has stated it said that food is currently around 30% more expensive than in the 1990s, and this is despite the fact that current pricing mechanisms have failed to capture the whole cost of food, taking into account social and environmental externalities at all levels, providing a full cost accounting. The FAO's reporting highlights that if environmental costs were accounted for, food prices might increase by 30 to 35% in the next decades. At a time when political and media attention is sensitive to the price of food and policymakers express concerns about the efficiency of agri-food systems, the body said that cheap, unhealthy, socially and environmentally unsustainable food cannot be the solution. And surpassing usual regional standards and in keeping with its commitment to strengthening its legislation, the government of Guyana has passed and enacted 25 pieces of legislation in 2022 alone. This was revealed by Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal. These 25 new laws, ranging from the hire purchase to the condominium bills, were all successfully passed through the National Assembly over the course of the year. The Attorney General said this feat is significant by any standard around the world, as it represents approximately 2 new laws being passed every month. And to wrap things up, having received a $69 million loan from the Inter-American Development Bank for the road network upgrade and expansion program under the Adequate Housing and Urban Accessibility Program, the CHNPA is looking to use part of the proceeds to facilitate infrastructural works at several communities on the east bank of Demerara. During a recent opening of tenders, it was revealed that CHNPA is looking for contractors to execute road and drainage works at Peters Hall, Perseverance, Providence North, Providence South, Herstelling, Farm Phase 1 and 2, and Covent Garden. The works, which are divided into 7 lots, would see contractors executing the construction of fair weather roads to asphalt a concrete surface, construction of reinforced concrete drains, and installation of road signs and thermoplastic road marking in those communities. And with the time now moving on to 12 hours 10 in Guyana, we wrap things up as usual by turning today's Kaieteur newspaper to page 7, dedicated to being blunt. Police and thief. The Guyana Police Force beefed up security in the busy city. Guyanese bandits beefed up their activity elsewhere. Motorbike bandits robbed citizens in Monrepo and Charlestown. We learned from the police that serious crime is down significantly. Just don't tell that to those sitting in their cars, losing their belongings. Just don't tell that to citizens living in fear, like sitting ducks. We have a PPPC government finding new ways to steal from Guyanese. We have bandits imitating the best, which are those in the PPPC government. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.